Are you a Toronto realtor and looking to take your business to the next level? Welcome to Toronto Realtor Resource Center. If you're a real estate professional in Toronto or surrounding area, then this podcast is for you. If you're looking to take your business to the next level, stay tuned everyone. This show will bring you all the tools, tips, and resources to help you crush it in your marketplace. Each week, I'll be bringing in Toronto's top minds, such as top-performing realtors, educators, coaches, and many other industry-related professionals in order to tap into their arsenal of resources to help you take your real estate business to the next level. I'm Leo Falkowski, mortgage broker with Dominion Lending Center's Mortgage Loans Canada. As a top mortgage broker for over 20 years, realtors have been instrumental in my personal success, and this show is my tribute to you. Welcome back, everyone, to another amazing episode. And this week, we've got a special one. We've got a treat for you. None other than Mr. Jonathon Kendall of MentorBox. Jonathon has been an executive since the startup's conception. He has not only read every business book known to man, but he's also co-authored not one, not two, but three of his own titles. Before joining MentorBox, Jonathon specialized in writing and communication in all forms. Beyond publishing his own titles, he's worked as a ghostwriter in narrative fiction and nonfiction. Jonathon strongly believes in the power of a growth mindset, and he displays so during our interview. If there's a flaw in your mindset, he can train you to erase it and implement a mantra to get your mind right. For those not familiar with MentorBox, its principals are none other than Ty Lopez, social media guru, as well as Alex Mayer, the former owner and founder of the dating site Zoosk. MentorBox is a high-level book subscription service, but it's also a lot more than that. It's a subscription service to the best books written by top people in their fields to motivate, inspire, and teach. Not only do you get the books, but you get an invitation to come out to their studio in San Francisco and get a lesson from the book. You are provided with a physical workbook to keep you focused on your goals. It's like a Harvard course without having to be enrolled at Harvard. As a busy agent, you are bombarded with emails, calls, and texts. Don't let photography and virtual tours be another headache. I personally endorse Property Pandas, a GTA-wide photography company with a killer $98 package that gives you unlimited HD photos, virtual tour, and a website for your next listing. Hard to beat that. Visit them at www.propertypandas.ca or text 647-204-3033. Open 7 days a week. The Pandas are here for you. Have you ever had a past client list their house for sale and you only find out about it when it shows up on the MLS, listed by someone else? Unfortunately, this happens far too often. As we get busy in our real estate business, we can't always find the time to stay in touch with our past clients. This is why I love dialabase.com. That's dialabase.com. Dialabase helps busy realtors stay in touch and generate leads from their past clients. Dialabase's professional callers are local, they act as an extension of your team, and will call your database for you on a regular basis. Phoning your past clients on a regular basis is one of the best ways to generate listings. Check them out at dialabase.com and use coupon code LEO, L-E-O, in the How Did You Hear About Us to save 20%. This episode, we talk about what is involved in bettering oneself, how to become better at sales at a fundamental level, and why MentorBox can help you get the most out of best nonfiction books on the market. Some key tips and takeaways I got from this episode are as follows. Learning from failure is the top skill of successful people. You have to deliberately practice and be aware of what you need to work on. Pick mentors who are experts in their field. Make a list of the traits you think you will need to be world-class in your field. Then rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 on each of these traits. Who you are can only be assessed by yourself. Being new to the game can set you up to be a disruptor in your industry. George Clooney was having problems getting roles until he changed his mindset. You'll have to listen to this one. You can't sell that huge real estate deal unless you can sell yourself. looking at everything as a commission will ruin your soul. And without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. Jonathon, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So cool to connect and hang in with you. But before we go ahead and dive deeper in, you've achieved so much in so little time. Maybe give our audience a bit of a glimpse about your background and what you've been up to lately.
Yeah, so I'm the Chief Content Officer at MentorBox right now in San Francisco. We're downtown in the financial district. For a long time, I did copywriting and ghostwriting, and then I got hired in to specifically run MentorBox's content team, which basically means that my job is to create summaries, lessons, interviews, documents, all sorts of really good materials to help our clients and our members most effectively consume the world's top information.
Right on. And can you give our audience a background on MentorBox and what that's all about?
Yeah, so MentorBox is, at a very high level, a book subscription service, but down in the weeds, basically what we do is we allow our members to consume nonfiction titles. So, for example, The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, or The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday, Presence by Amy Cuddy, Thrive by Arianna Huffington, you name it, we've probably done it. What we do basically is we realize that reading a book is only one part of the process. And a book is an artifact, right? It's a very old technology. And reading is great. And, now you can listen to podcasts, now you can do audiobooks. But to really learn something, and this goes back to Barbara Oakley's teachings from the University of Oakland, who wrote Mind for Numbers. And she's sort of the foremost expert in the world on learning science, how to learn something most effectively, and then how to turn that information into a habit. And what we do is we organize the material in a palatable way so that it's basically impossible for you not to understand and then apply the lessons from these world-class nonfiction leaders
right
into your life, right? So it's easy to read a book and you may be able to talk over dinner with a few people and you say, oh yeah, have you read Extreme Ownership by Leif Babin and Jocko Willink? It was pretty good. That's very different than this changed my life and here's how. And that's what we try to do.
Very cool. What are some of the most influential people you've met along the way?
Yeah, so I've mentioned a few already. I have a really beautiful, and I'm, very blessed to have the job that I have. So I've met a lot of these thought leaders and professors and thinkers and, leaders of the nonfiction world. And I'd say some of the ones that have most influenced me are, I had mentioned Ryan Holiday, he just came out with a book called Perennial Seller, which we'll be working with soon. But The Obstacle is the Way, which is basically about Stoic philosophy. How do you deal with problems most effectively? Because we're all going to have struggles, right? It's a journey, the hero's journey, if you will, by this kind of a Joseph Campbell concept. But as we're moving along our path, regardless of, how you're framing it, whether or not it's in your relationship or whether or not your career or whether or not it's your physical health even, basically we're all going to come upon roadblocks. And the real difference between that I've found really successful high-level people, regardless of your field, is how quickly can you move on and learn, most importantly, learn from failure. I know your last guest talked about the idea of you either win or you learn. Either way, you win, right? And this is encapsulated perfectly in Stoic philosophy. And Ryan Holiday, who wrote Ego is the Enemy, Trust Me, I'm Lying, Growth Hacking. I know your listeners are voracious readers, but if you're into marketing and especially guerrilla marketing with real estate, I would definitely recommend reading Trust Me, I'm Lying. He's just a total monster in the present day, and a lot of people have never even heard of him. Right? We go through, we watch television as a society, and we idolize actors and different, even sometimes fictional characters. When we have these incredible thought leaders that are right at our fingertips and are ready to give us the world's most powerful information if we were just able to listen correctly. So I would say Ryan Holiday, and then also Extreme Ownership by Leif Babin and Jocko Willink, which is basically, it's a practical application to Carol Dweck's studies about a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And this idea that basically how you frame the world, how you view the world. Imagine being a Jedi, right? If you're a Jedi, to use a Star Wars term, imagine if you're a Jedi, you're looking at the world through a completely different lens. You're more confident. You're able to deal with anything that comes your way. And you know not only how to deal with it if it goes well, but also how to deal with it if it doesn't go well. And this idea that you are ultimately responsible for everything that happens in your life and your family's life. And the idea of an excuse is really an excuse. All your reasons are actually excuses. There's always a way, right? And this idea of extreme ownership is really, really powerful. So I could go on and on about all of our thought leaders and professors and wisdom keepers, that, as I like to call them, that we feature. But those are two of my favorites that have had a profound impact on my life.
No, that's awesome. And you mentioned something about roadblocks, and Ed Sullivan refers to something called the ceiling of complexity. It's basically when you hit a brick wall, so to speak, or can't reach that next breakthrough or tranche. How do you find yourself navigate through that and ultimately break through that ceiling of complexity? Is there an author or a book that you would recommend that would help with that sort of mindset?
Yeah. So one game that I like to play with myself is actually from Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. And this is going way back, right? I studied philosophy in college, so you got to bear with me here for a second. But this idea that he calls it the equanimity game, right? So if you're moving through life in a comfortable way, right? Everything is going not necessarily well, but not badly. You are at equanimity. And then you reach a point where you've plateaued. It might not even be a really horrendous event, but it's just something that's kind of nagging or uncomfortable, or you've reached a point where you don't feel like you can move on in an appropriate way, right? Well, this feels like you're off balance. It's, imagine if we could do a video here, but the way that I think about it is like a pendulum, right? And everything is going really well if it's perfectly vertical. But as you get pushed off this vertical equanimity, you have to ask yourself, how quickly can I get back to equanimity, right? Is it going to take 30 seconds? Am I going to allow myself to feel like this for 30 seconds until I start brainstorming solutions, right? Because you always want to be in the solution business. You don't want to be in the rumination business, right?
Absolutely.
So it's easy to ruminate. It's really easy to find an excuse or reason why something went wrong. Oh, this client, XYZ. Oh, this area, XYZ. The competition already has XYZ, right? But the truth is, you always have some advantage. And even if it is just your voracious desire to get better, you always have some advantage. And so the question is, how are you going to use those advantages as quickly as possible? Taking a day or 2 days or 5 days, sometimes, honestly, especially in our personal lives, it can be a year or 10 years where we haven't let go of something. And this, without getting too spiritual, the idea that we really are only in this moment. So thoughts are created by us, right? Or at least our subconscious. They come into our present moment, and we can either let them become physical feelings or emotions, or we can watch them, we can observe them and say, okay, this actually doesn't exist. This is not happening right now. This happened in the past. Or this is something that I'm fearing that might happen in the future. And it has no bearing on what we're actually doing right now, right? So this ability to basically be so self-aware that you can immediately see your world from a bird's eye view and say, what's actually happening? Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. And I love the way you digress that. It's basically from going, victim mentality to quickly assessing and asserting the situation that you're in, and how do we propel out of this and move forward? Am I getting the grip on the handle correctly?
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously there's usually a right way, but the right way comes from knowledge, right? So this is where having the right tools comes in. I mean, there's mindset is one thing, right? You can have this constant obsessive growth mindset. You can play the equanimity game. You can brainstorm solutions, but whether or not you can find the right solutions and then execute the right solutions actually has to do with whether or not you have the right tools, right? So I can tell myself that I theoretically would know how to play in the NBA finals, but that doesn't mean that I actually should be doing it or that I would be good at it. It takes years and sometimes decades of what Cal Newport calls, or Anders Ericsson as well, which is from Anders Ericsson is peak and Cal Newport is deep work, or So Good They Can't Ignore You. Also, So Good They Can't Ignore You is, I would highly, highly, highly recommend for any knowledge worker. But this idea that you have to have the right skill set, which means that you need to deliberately practice, right? So being aware of what are the things that I need to get better at. So saying, yeah, but I'm not very good at public speaking, or yeah, I'm not really good at sealing the deal, or yeah, I'm not really good at cold calling because I get nervous, or whatever it may be, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you can say that out loud, you can find the solution. The first step is, okay, this is where I'm not good. But the answer is not, well, then I'm forever not good at that. The answer is, who are the world's experts in this field, and how can I quickly absorb that information and then deliberately practice it until it becomes muscle memory, and now I am good at it.
Right. And you mentioned a term called awareness, which I believe, it involves digging really deep, and not everybody has that kind of mindset, if you will. You also talked about having the tools or the skill sets. How would you recommend someone delve deeper in to develop that awareness, and ultimately what tools, maybe give our audience 3 to 5 action steps required?
I always like to think of it, this dynamic tension between where you want to be and where you are right now, right? So imagine, actually, you don't even have to imagine, who is the theoretical perfect mentor for you? If it's, and I would really highly encourage the listeners right now to not pick the person that is your immediate competitor, or someone that's a little bit better than you, or someone that maybe has a larger chunk of the pie in your region. This is not your person that you should be looking up to. Who you should be looking up to? Well, because they're not really where you theoretically want to be. So imagine in real estate, like Gary Keller, right?
Mm-hmm.
The one thing. Now, he is literally the number one in the world and has written a book about how to focus. If you haven't read that book as a real estate agent, it seems like you should be reading that book, right? So this is the world class. If I want to be a basketball player, I should be reading Steph Curry or LeBron James or Michael Jordan. If I want to be, a world class musician, I should be reading and doing what the world class musicians are doing, not someone that is just 1 or 2 steps ahead of us. And conveniently and beautifully, most of the people, once they get to this top 5 in the world level, they usually write a book about it, or they have a podcast about it, or they have a YouTube channel about it, and they will start to tell you, because now it's the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? They get to a point where they're successful enough and they want to start giving back. And where are they going to give back most effectively and most naturally? They're going to give back in the field of their specialization. So pick those leaders, right? And say, what are they doing? This is going to come full circle, I promise. What are they doing that I'm not? What are they good at that I'm not good at? And in fact, then you can start to, and again, back to self-awareness, literally make a list, right? So say, these are my advantages. This is what I feel good at, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, these are the 10 skills that you need in order to be a total rock star, world-class, billionaire tycoon real estate agent, right? This is what you would need, right? Rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 on those factors, right? And then you look at someone like Gary Keller or Michael Jordan and you say, okay, where are they on the scale of all of these? And they're probably going to be near the top on everything, right? So then it's a simple drawing the line, right? It's saying, okay, now I know that I need to learn how to make a first impression that will last forever, so that someone will say, oh man, I definitely, you remember that Leo? And they will say that for 10 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you know that you need to make a first impression like that, I mean, you can, as simple as Googling right? Like how to make a good first impression, and there'll be books about it, right? There will be experts about it. There will be seminars about it. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, an obvious solution, right? You start to then feel that tension between where you are and where you know you want to be or where you should be. And again, on the world-class level, not the person down the street, at a world-class level. And then you start marching every single day, chipping. It's like a huge boulder and you say, oh man, this is a huge boulder. What am I going to do with this boulder? Well, if you want to move the boulder, you just chip off a little piece and then put it in another pile. Chip off another piece and put it in another pile. Chip off another piece. And it's going to be annoying and difficult. And that's where we go back to mindset and the obstacle is the way. And that the only way to do this is to get there. But honestly, this is the answer. It's not an easy answer, but this is the answer. But you have to know which boulder to chip, right? So you need to know, I'm already good at this. What's actually the problem is that I just am not making enough calls because I feel this anxiety and I feel like I'm pressuring people and et cetera. Well, then you need to get over that and you need to figure out how to get over that and dial in on that and chip that boulder every single day until you're really good at that and then move on to the next. And it's just like a video game when you're powering up the different, I don't play video games, but I've seen this before, right? Like you're in a racing game and there's really good traction on the wheels or speed or acceleration. You know that you should have 100% in all of them, right?
Sure.
But if you know that you're 90% in one, then go to the one that's really lagging, I should say, and then start chipping away at it. Does that make sense? But you have to be self-aware. You need to take this self-assessment and say, okay, what do I actually need to do?
Yeah, sounds to me, Jonathan, like in other words, you're saying success leaves clues and all successful people leave, like you said, referring to earlier, blogs or books or examples. And if you're intuitive and if you're brutally honest with yourself, and I'm going to circle back to honesty because you said earlier that how do I pair up to a Gary Keller or a Michael Jordan or, this elite superstar that I want to look up to as a realtor? Because let's face it, we have that 90-10 rule and it's, Pareto's principle. It's definitely that percentage is going the other way, meaning it's soon going to be like 95-5 if it not already is, and then 99-1. And everybody wants to be that 1%. But how does someone honestly rate themselves on that scale of 1 to 10 and say, yeah, I think I'm a 7 or a 9 or a 5? Would you recommend they bounce that off a coach or a mentor? Or what technique would you recommend they go about finding that exercise?
All ego is generally the enemy in this way, right? So a lot of times, this goes back to your idea of self. Right. And again, who you are as a human being, your values and the way that you move through the world can only be actively and actually assessed by yourself. Right. So what this does is it actually gives a force field, right, around against all outside influence. So if someone says, hey, you're this, you're that, this should not affect your inner compass of who you are. And if you feel, listen, I'm a good person, right? I have good intentions. I know what I want to do for my family, and I'm not trying to screw anyone over. This is not a zero-sum game. I'm a win-win personality. I'm moving in the right direction for the right reasons, and I have these proper goals. Well, if that's true, then if someone tells you that your tactics or the tools that you're using are ineffective, this is separate from you as a person. So I guess what I'm getting at here is that, yes, the answer is get as much feedback as humanly possible, right? Deep work or deliberate practice. If you want to get better at something, it requires immediate feedback. So if you say, I want to be a better realtor, then you need to get constant, obsessive feedback from everyone and anyone. But this does not mean that anything that anyone says affects this inner core of who you are. You can, again, observe it from above and you can say, hey, that's great. When I realize that I'm saying this word too often, or I realize that I'm not finishing the sale when I should be, or I realize I'm not making enough calls, or I realize I'm really ineffective in the morning, or I realize whatever that may be. Because maybe some people tell you and they're telling you this. This has nothing to do with who you are. This is not defining you as a bad person. And that's where I go back to this self-esteem analogy, that you have to separate what you do and what other people tell you as feedback from your core. And I think the reason why, in fact, I know the reason why people are afraid of asking those difficult questions. Hey, why didn't you buy from me? Hey, why are you going with a different real estate agent? Can you follow me for a day, or can you follow me on a sale? Can you listen to this call? What am I doing differently? What am I doing incorrectly?
Sure.
Those types of questions are invaluable. And I think often people don't ask them as often as they should, because they're afraid of attaching that feedback to their core humanity of who they are as a person. And so they don't want to feel like, oh, well, I'm not good. You're not good at you're not as effective as you should be at cold calling a potential client. Has nothing to do with who you are as a person. You can learn that skill. It does. So if someone says, oh, you're not very good at that, they interpret that as I'm not good. So building that barrier is the first step in being able to then learn everything you need to learn and make that self-assessment and ask all of the right questions so that you can say, hey, you know what? I really do need to improve this. And it doesn't mean I'm a bad person. And it doesn't mean I can't ever improve it. And it doesn't mean that I'm always going to be where I am right now. It just means that I need to improve this. It's as simple as that. And making that distinction between that statement and who you are is massively important.
No, what you're saying, Jonathan, is bang on. It's profound, and I believe it takes a lot of digging deep, because you have to have a lot of awareness to be able to separate yourself from the ego. And, in my opinion, that's what separates the ducks from the eagles. But more to the point is, I'm coaching and working with so many realtors over the years, and, you have somebody fairly new in the business. Maybe they're in their mid to late 20s, not too many years experience in the real estate business. And they'd be like, you know what? I had a listing appointment last night. They interviewed me and 2 other senior agents. They decided to go with someone else more experienced. And what would you say to a younger, newer realtor that just hasn't caught up age-wise to look more the part of a senior agent and win that listing?
Here's what I would say. A lot of times, and this is a kind of a Silicon Valley concept, is the idea that being new to the game and being fresh to the game actually allows for a lot of malleability that can allow you to become a disruptor, right? So a lot of people are set in their ways because they've been doing something for 10 years or 15 years or even more than that. And they say, hey, this is how it works. This is the real estate game. So what was the taxi game before Uber, right? I'm sure that the owners of the taxi companies were very comfortable and they said, hey, this is the way it is. I'm sure coal mining companies were very comfortable before now, the explosion of renewable energy, right?
Sure.
I'm sure the buggy and carriage were very comfortable in their business model before the car, right?
Right.
And I don't mean to be, I'm not being facetious here. What I'm saying is that everyone has an advantage, right? So your advantage might be the fact that you are not already stuck in your way, right? So ask yourself, what can they do that I cannot do? The people that were chosen, right? Or the person that was chosen.
Mm-hmm.
Write it out. What are they doing that I can't do? Now, is it true that I can't do that? If it is, then they actually are probably doing something better, and there's a reason why they are chosen. But if the only reason is, well, this person has 10 years experience, address it head on. So George Clooney, when he was moving to Los Angeles, he was obsessively trying out for roles when he was very young. And I mean, if you've been to LA or you know anyone in LA in the Hollywood, I mean, it is as cutthroat and as intense as any industry in the world, right?
I was just there last week.
Yeah. And you can feel it almost the moment you get into the airport. You can feel this energy of like, oh man, everyone is talented and pretty and ambitious, and man, okay, I better get to it, and you're competing with everyone that's like that. I think in the real estate game is probably the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you going to differentiate yourself? And this is also going to be kind of like a sales 101 lesson, but we have George Clooney here. He's applying for all of these roles and he's not getting anything. Keeps on hitting brick walls. And what he does is he changes his mindset. Now, think about what's happening. The producers of a movie often have 10 to $100 million on the line. Imagine if you were a business owner and you gave $100 million for a business that you spend all of it up front and then you go to market and you hope it works. Imagine that. That is crazy risk, right?
Of course.
So they need everything to work out perfectly. They need all the cogs and the wheels and all of the machinery to work perfectly. And guess what? That includes an actor. If an actor is terrible in the role, people will literally say, yeah, it's okay, but the acting is really bad, especially if it's one of the leads. So the director is sweating just as hard about getting the right actor as the actor is about getting the right role, right? So he was going in with this mentality of, oh, well, I hope I get the part. And I know that there's a lot of people that have more experience than me. And I know that, maybe I'm not quite as good. And then he goes in there hoping that this grand guru director will somehow give him his lucky break.
Right.
Well, that's going to come out in his performance. So what he did is he changed his mindset and he said, listen, I am the solution to your problem. I know that you're worried. I know that you have to hire the cinematographer still. I know you're still rewriting the script. I know you still need another $10 million from another producer. I know that you're trying to figure out distribution even before the movie's even started. I know that, the second camera person is, annoying because they're in Australia and they're not coming back, blah, 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 blah. And guess what? I am going to check off this box. I know you have a list of 100 things, and only one of them is I need this one actor to do really well. Well, guess what? I'm your solution. No problem. No worries. I got you. Right? And then immediately that year, his career takes off, and then he becomes ER, and he becomes now George Clooney. Right.
Wow.
So this is a mindset shift. And I think what happens is if you go into an interview with the feeling that, well, these other three people are probably better than me because they have more experience, whatever. It doesn't matter. You can directly address that. Listen, I know that I don't have as much experience as a lot of the people that you're probably interviewing, but this is why I'm better in this way. This is why I'm better in this way. This is why I have a better mentality. I will work blah, 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 blah. And I am your person. I promise you. And if you believe it, it's going to come out and people, all sales is human, right? So they're going to say, man, I know that person has 10 years experience, but they didn't have this interesting idea that this other person, they're just kind of like everyone else. And in fact, you can then become the purple cow. A 25-year-old, this is a Seth Godin idea, but you can become the purple cow by being 25 or 27 or 30 or whatever your thing is. In fact, it's not even age related, but just because this is how you frame the question, you brainstorm ways that you are superior to everyone else and can at least match what everyone else is doing. And if you can convey that confidently to yourself, then convey it confidently to the person that you're speaking to. And I promise you things will change.
Absolutely, because you're not going to sell a multi-million-dollar property at alone a $500,000 property if you can't sell yourself, right?
Exactly.
It's like you're walking into cold, especially if it's not a warm referral. You got to really delve deep, figure out who you are, believe in yourself, focus on that mindset, go ahead and execute the principles because, not everyone looks like George Clooney, and kudos to him. But good looks can only get you so far. Am I hearing you right?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, the thing is that if you're in LA, you'll notice that George Clooney is actually, physical appearance is kind of an aura, right? If you just go walk through Toronto or you walk through New York or, you're going to see people that are generally as attractive as George Clooney. He's attractive, but you'll see attractive people in your local coffee shop. It's just, it's only one thing. The main thing was the mindset. And also, I'll say this, if you are selling something, anything, you have to be evangelical about it. You have to believe in your heart, really believe that what you're doing is, so money is an exchange of value, right? So you have to believe that you are giving value to your client or your customer. If you don't believe in the product, if you're selling something, a snake oil pill, I mean, maybe you can charm some unintelligent people into buying something, but if you want to be massive, what you need to do is believe in your product. And the crazy thing about it is that, think about the idea of a home.
Mm-hmm.
What is a home? A home is so emotional and personal and a beautiful thing, right? Your job is to connect a human being who often is going through a big change in their life, whether it's, financially or geographically, and they're taking a risk, right? But the ultimate reward is that they can find a new home. This is ancient. This is so down the rabbit hole of what it means to be a human, to have your nest. Your job is to connect those two, to give a human being a home that they can live in, possibly for generations to come.
Sure.
If you frame it in that way, you can become very evangelical about selling a piece of real estate, because you're doing something beautiful. In fact, you're doing something human. And then if you can believe in that and you can say, okay, now I'm excited, because, I'm excited for getting the next 9 no's, because the 10th one, I'm going to do something that's going to forever change their life. If I'm selling a mop to someone, I'm probably not going to change their life. If I'm selling even most dining experiences don't change your life. It's just, utility. And so what you're doing, you have to know in your heart and your soul that what you're doing is a wonderful, beautiful thing. And that can get you excited. And like what Grant Cardone says, do the 10x work that's necessary. But if you don't believe in it, then you're going to be constantly fighting yourself. You're going to be fighting your own demons, because it's going to be all about money. You're going to see everything as a transaction. What's my commission on this? What's my commission on this? What's my commission on this? And that will ruin your soul. And eventually you just won't be able to get up and do it well. Whereas if you go into the interaction saying, man, this is your home, and here's why. I'm so excited for you guys. I'm so excited because of this, this, and this, and this. And this is why it's personal to you. And this is why it's perfect for your neighborhood, and blah, 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 whatever it may be. I'm not, to be frank, I've never sold a house before, but, these concepts are universal. And the idea that you have to own the space and own the sale in a personal and human way, that can be very exciting. And I think, selling homes is a beautiful thing. And I don't say that just because I'm on this podcast. I say that because I've seen it.
Oh, for no doubt, Jonathan, you hit the nail on the head when you said value before profits, and that's what it's all about. But if we can circle back to MentorBox, and I hear the passion coming out of you, I would like to get you to tell our audience a little bit more about MentorBox, how it got born, who's involved, who the principals are, and what the ultimate vision is.
So MentorBox came about as a passion project from Alex Mayer and Ty Lopez. Alex Mayer is the former, he's a co-founder and former CEO of Zeusk, which does over 100 million. Ty Lopez is over 50 million a year. He's a social media star and, self-improvement and learning. And they decided, listen, a lot of times people will gift books to each other and then they won't read it because they say they don't have time, which is hilarious to me. The 7th habit of highly effective people is sharpen the saw. And, you need to, I don't know if you've ever heard this fable, but the idea of, you're trying to cut down a tree with a dull saw and you say, oh, I don't have time to sharpen it. So this is tortoise and the hare, basically. People will say, oh, I don't have time to read this book. I don't have time to improve. Well, the people that are doing this are going to pass you up very quickly, especially in a knowledge economy.
Right.
The idea here is, how do you do this most effectively, and how do you bring people into the fray that need this knowledge? They need to read Extreme Ownership. They need to read The Power of Habit. They need to read Thrive. They need to read Solve for Happy. They need this information, right? And they feel like they don't have time. The average CEO, studies have shown, reads 60 books a year. That's not accidental. What we've done is we automate the whole thing. we say, listen, there's 1 million books a year that are published, especially now with the barriers to entry being zero with Kindle. Anyone can write a book. Which books are you going to write, right? Which books are you going to read and which books are you going to ingest? And what we say is we have a team of people that are going to scour the globe for everything that's being written this year, sometimes hasn't even been out yet, and everything that's ever been written. And we will just give you what you need and nothing that you don't need. And then what we're going to do is we're going to package it in a way that's very digestible. In fact, you don't even need to read the book. The book is like a text, right? So we give you a 30-minute or 10 to 30-minute executive summary, which you just listen to it and you get all of the major points of the book. Then we give you a cheat sheet, which is the 10 major points of the book, and it's organized in a what you need to know and how do you apply it to your life way. Then we give you a workbook, which is learning science has shown unequivocally this is not up for debate. Journaling and application to life is the number one way to absorb something. So I can tell you a theory. So for example, if you were listening to this podcast and you had a journal next to you and you were writing down all of the major points, and then after this podcast, you went back to every major point and asked yourself this question: how do I apply this to my life? How do I make this part of my routine? How do I implement this in my family, et cetera, et cetera? If you did this and you literally wrote it out, that will change your life. So imagine instead of listening to me and Leo, you're listening to the world's
Stephen
experts
Covey or Kevin,
Stephen, exactly, in every major field. Which is, again, I talked about this earlier, to go back full circle, this dynamic tension between where you want to be and you want to talk about, the top 5 in the world. You don't want to talk about the person that's next door to you, right? I mean, talk to the person next door to you, but ultimately you want to have as your mentors the world class, and we give you the world class, right? And then we literally go either to them or they come to our studio in San Francisco and we give you a lesson, and it's not an interview. Right? You can watch a TED Talk for 20 minutes and you get a kind of general overview of what people are talking about. What we do is we break it down into the specific action points from every book and how to apply this to your life. And then we give you the workbook, which asks you all of those questions. So the journal entries that I alluded to earlier, we send you a physical workbook that just asks you the question. It gives you a general overview of the point and then asks you the question. It's like a world-class lecture from a professor, but instead of having to go to Harvard, because we have Harvard professors, we have Georgetown professors, we have Yale professors, we have Stanford professors, we have Arizona State professors, we have Berkeley professors that have written books. And rather than having to sign up for the MBA program at Berkeley to get them to give you a lecture, we just give it to you every month. And so we automate it.
Yeah.
And it's basically impossible to not learn the information. And you're going to get it from an audio, you're going to get it visual, you're going to get it, reading format, and then you get the kinesthetic learning, and then you apply it. We also have a mastermind group that all of our members are immediately a part of, and they get live Q&As with a lot of these authors. So if you have a specific question, you can have access to these super busy people that you're not. It's like, imagine before you are listening to a podcast or you watch a television show, because you're a member, you're allowed to ask a specific question, and then they give your problem a case study answer, but from the world's experts. So it's all inclusive. It's constantly growing. It's super exciting. We went from 0 to we're over 10 million run rate in 8 months.
Wow, congrats, Jonathan. That sounds brilliant. It's almost like you're sitting on the shoulders of giants, and I appreciate the way you unpack that for us. So in summary, you're basically getting a 10 to 30-minute executive summary, you're getting a cheat sheet, you're getting a workbook, you're part of a mastermind, and if you can fly into, I guess, your studio for a TED Talk?
Well, every single author does a video lesson with us, which is about an hour to 2 hour lesson where they explain all of the concepts of their book in detail. So there's also a video lesson with it.
Phenomenal. And if I was a consumer receiving a Mentor Box package for the first time, what would that look like? Would it be like a big box? Does it come in like
so imagine, I don't know, like Blue Apron. I don't know if you're familiar with Blue Apron food delivery service. It's basically a a box that holds the 2 books. We send you 2 physical books that we're featuring, and then all of the printed materials. And then we give you a really nice USB drive with all of the audio and all of the video materials, and they're yours. So share them with friends, have a group over, watch it on your big screen, make a night of it. We're not trying to hold any of this as much as possible. So you get everything on a USB drive, everything's printed out for you, and then we give you the physical books. We also have an online membership which gives you not just the physical box every month, but we give you all of the materials. It's an online portal. You log in and you can watch everything that we've ever done in the history of the company.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. So the online, just mentorbox.com is the easiest way.
Mentorbox.com. And can you give our audience a little overview about the pricing?
Yeah. So the pricing right now, we do $89.99 for per month for the online membership. And depending upon the month, it's between $100 and $130 for the physical subscription. But we also have a yearly subscription as well that we sell. So it's certainly for the mover and the shaker. It's for someone. A lot of our people are self-employed. They're entrepreneurs. They have their own businesses. A lot of doctors, a lot of lawyers, a lot of executives. That's sort of our membership base. But honestly, anyone who wants to improve their life, we're here for you.
Guys, you can't afford not to take this offer up. And just in wrapping up, Jonathan, quick question. Is there a limit as to the amount of books or products that are included in the membership?
The physical box is 2 per month. And then we also do 2 additional workshops. So it's 4 pieces of content per month for the physical product. And the online, we do a new book every week. So it's never ending. And you get access to everything we've ever done. So if you sign up right now, you're going to be busy for months, in addition to everything that we're adding on a constant basis. It's super exciting.
Fantastic. And I'm going to link all that up into the show notes so my audience has an overview about MentorBox and how to become a member. And I just want to thank you so much, Jonathan, for adding so much insight, and much continued success to you and to MentorBox.
Yeah, you as well. And, if anyone is coming from, your listener and you join the mastermind group, let us know and we'll keep tally. It's going to be super exciting to meet all the real estate agents from your area.
I'm stoked, man. That's awesome. All the best.
Cheers.
Jonathan was an absolute delight to chat with, and I learned so much from this episode. For complete show notes, be sure to check out leofalkovsky.com. That's LeoFalkovsky.com. Also, check out our complete mortgage section for the best mortgage terms and programs our industry has to offer. Never lose a real estate transaction over financing again. I encourage each and every one of you to join MentorBox and keep your thirst for learning. If you want to be the best, you have to learn from the best. And what better way than sitting on the shoulders of giants by joining MentorBox. Stay great, everyone, and check in next week, another killer episode with none other than John Lee Dumas of Entrepreneur on Fire. You won't want to miss this one, guys. Keep reaching out to me, guys. I love hearing from you, and let me know which guest you'd like me to interview next. Let me know what pain points you have in your business and how we can help solve them. You can reach out directly by shooting me an email at leofalkovsky.com or simply give our team a call at 416-356-6968. Till next time, stay great, everyone.